Welcome back. As we promised, we are going to shed more light on the 36th annual summit of the African Union. The African leaders are gathering in Addis Ababa in the Ethiopian capital to discuss a number of issues related to our continent and to shed more light on the agenda of talks on the most important files which started to be discussed yesterday and are going to continue today. We are very much delighted to have with us via phone Her Excellency Ambassador Omar, former Assistant Foreign Minister for African Affairs. A very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you.
Let's start immediately as it's really a very important summit. A lot of issues, as I said, to be discussed on the agenda of talks. And on top of the list is peace in the Black Continent. You know, since Egypt had the rotating presidency of the African Union, we launched this very important initiative, Silencing the Gun. And today, unfortunately, we are still focusing on it as the most important issue in Africa. When we achieve peace, then any other thing can be achieved easily. Peace first. If you agree with me on that, and would you please elaborate?
Actually, sorry, I don't agree, because the Silence of the Gun initiative was not launched by Egypt. It was launched much before, many years before Egypt took the presidency of the AU. But we put emphasis on it, as we put emphasis on also the initiative of creating the free trade area. I mean, these two initiatives are very important, related to the security and the peace in the continent, and also the flow of trade, the trade between the countries in the continent of Africa and the development of the resources. But this year's summit is quite important because it comes while we are coming out of COVID, while we are suffering from the war between Ukraine and Russia, while we have so many disasters related to the environment, and all of these conditions are making of this summit a very special event. If we are talking about the agenda, as always, is including crisis, peace and security crisis in the continent. It is including the big issue of the environment, and actually Egypt is playing a vital and pivotal role in this file. And if we follow Minister Shukri's speech yesterday, we can see that he highlighted so many points related to Egypt's responsibility and resolution to take over this file for the continent. And also related, we have also the other file, which is related to NEPAD. And we are very happy that Egypt took the presidency of NEPAD until the year 25, and especially that we were one of the 5 founders of this great initiative. The others were Algeria, Nigeria, South Africa, and Senegal.
Yes, amen to that. And to add to what you've just said, Ambassador Omar, regarding the speech of Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri, who participated in the summit on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, he, as you've kindly mentioned, sent a lot of messages regarding the Egyptian keenness to put the climate change cause of Africa as one of our priorities, taking into consideration that the achievements or the positive results of the COP27 would not have been achieved on the ground without the help of the African states and institutions. On top of the list is the Loss and Damage Fund.
Yeah, you're very right, and especially that during COP27, Egypt was representing the continent of Africa, and we succeeded in getting the issue of financing the environment, a very important issue. So the suffering that is going through in the continent related to so many things, be it floods, be it desertification, a lot of things, which is really having an effect on the food security and on the security, the water security, also all kind of aspects of security.
Yes.
I think it is a very important issue to have rise
Of course.
present. Mm.
And the summit will also aim to accelerate the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which was launched back in 2020. To what extent now the quick implementation of this agreement, or this free trade agreement, to be accurate, is not a choice, is not a luxury. It's a must for the best interest of all the African states, as the whole world is suffering from the negative repercussions, as also you've kindly mentioned, whether from 3 years of COVID-19 or 1 year of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict.
Yeah, I would just add that it is the realization of our dream since we started the African Union, which was the organization of African Union before being the AU, to have an Africa without frontiers, to have a united Africa. So this is a very important step. It is a priority for all of us. And if we remember, we had really an envoy from the Kenyan president that came and met His Excellency the President to ask Egypt to help in urging all the countries that didn't yet finalize their ratification of this agreement to do it as fast as possible for the sake of the whole continent.
Yes. Well, Comoros President Assoumani, who already received the rotating presidency of the African Union, called for a total cancellation of African debt in his acceptance speech. How do you see this call?
I mean, this is very good, but I don't think that it will be realized during this time, as the West have problems on its own, financial problems, and the rest of the whole world also are suffering. So I hope that something can be done, maybe to lessen the amount of debt, but not to cancel it completely. And I want to really emphasize that we are very happy that Comoro Island is present, as this is also an Arab country.
Yes.
And for the first time, we have Comoro presiding over the AU.
Yes. And among the high-ranking guests or attendees, it was the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghait, and he emphasized or highlighted the importance of having this should be fruitful cooperation between the Arab and African nations for the best interest of all. And it's going to be a win-win situation when we achieve this cooperation on the ground. And he mentioned particularly the situation in Libya, the situation in Somalia, the situation in Comoros. And if peace, security, stability are realized in those three countries, for example, this is going to have positive impacts on the whole neighboring African states. If you want to elaborate on that.
Yes, this is very true. The situation in Libya, and also not only in Libya, we have the whole west of Africa. Maybe Minister Abul Ghait mentioned these three countries because they are Arab countries, but the situation of peace and security in general in the African continent, be it related to wars, be it related to drugs, be it related to a lot of threats, actually, it's affecting negatively the situation of being able to develop our resources and concentrate on the developmental aims of the continent and our Agenda 2063. So when these kind of crises are appeased and solved, for sure we are going to go to concentrate on the development in the continent.
And because of that, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also emphasized during his speech calling for Africa to take what he called action for peace, adding that the continent of 1.4 billion people faced enormous tests on virtually every front. Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Hello? Sorry, because I'm on the road, so maybe there are places there is no network.
I beg
didn't
your
hear your
pardon.
question.
Can you hear me well now?
Yes, yes.
I was continuing on another speech which was said this time by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who called for Africa to take action for peace, adding that the continent of 1.4 billion people faced what he called, or named it this way, enormous tests on virtually every front. This is the way international institutions are looking to Africa. How do you see this?
I agree completely with him about the importance of establishing peace in the African continent. Until now, we are considered the worst continent on on Earth related to the questions of peace and security, and peace and security in general. But I have to say that a lot has been done. So many steps have been taken. Initiatives are going on all the time, and we cannot really forget that many of the African countries now are becoming models for democracy and for security. And for example, one of the countries like Egypt, we succeeded in getting rid of the terrorism completely, and this is very good point for the continent, as well as we are helping the others. We are transferring our expertise in this regard. We also don't have the illegal immigration phenomena that was a problem for some time. So when we talk about calling for the African continent to take steps, we are taking steps. We are taking huge steps. And I think a lot has been done if we have to look at it a bit more positively.
Amen to that. And there are voices who are saying that the global crises which took place in the past few years, whether
Sorry, the global what? I didn't hear.
Hello?
The global? Yes, what did you say? The global?
There are voices saying that the global crises which took place recently in the past 3 years, as in COVID, and now in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, made the whole world a very small village. And the West knew that, with the proofs on the ground, that we cannot differentiate between a continent and the other. There should be full cooperation among all states for the best interest of humanity. I mean, they do need now energy. Maybe it's solar energy, it's our gas. The south of the Mediterranean is less important than the north of the Mediterranean. So how do you see there should be cooperation among all states, taking into consideration that Africa is still a virgin continent, and that we are all in need to cooperate together. The crises are not directed to a certain continent or a certain people.
Yeah, you're right, and I agree with you. The crises are not directed to certain continent or certain people, but also we have to be realistic about the very bad effects that the war of Ukraine and the COVID as well had on us, especially in Africa. If we talk about cooperation, so the funds that were more sent to Ukraine, I think this is having an effect on the cooperation with the African continent. So it is a big problem, and they will not realize it now. But I hope that soon or later they can stop making a big difference between what is going to Africa and what is going to the rest of the continent. As you said, we need each other. We in Africa have resources, and they need these resources as well as we need their technology, as well as we need their knowledge, and maybe the investments that will come from the West. These are the things that we need in Africa.
One final question, Ambassador Omar, regarding illegal migration, because you mentioned this. As I was speaking about the West, they found with proofs that whenever there is or there are disputes, where there are struggles, there are conflicts or war, they are going to receive, unfortunately, exodus or thousands of youth flooding to their coasts in an attempt to find asylum or in trying to find a better life. And
Yes,
they were suffering from
yeah.
that. When they do help the developing African countries to have their own development process, they are not going to suffer from illegal migration. And this is only an example. If you agree with me on that.
I do agree completely with you, and I would like to add, it's not only these economic problems, but also the environment problems. If we have these big floods or the volcanoes and the desertification, the people have to leave the place and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they have also the interest to help in eliminating the effects of all these environmental disasters. And this is why the fund that was created, or not created, urged to be realistically done during the COP27, it's in their interest as West to start really giving what they promised to do.
And I think it's also an important occasion for attracting more investments to the Black continent.
Yeah, the investments are the key, and hopefully that we as Africans also can take the initiative and do our own work and invest in
Homework.
our countries. Yeah.
Well, Your Excellency, Ambassador Muna Omar, former Assistant Foreign Minister for African Affairs, thank you very much for your input. Have a very good day. Thank you very much. Well, right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned.